So this is a sort of loadout that I would do for just a quick weekend trip, maybe 24 hours to 48 hours on trail. It's a relatively light load, but it's also fairly comfortable, and this is generally what I would bring for the Sierras between late July, early August, and September. Maybe as far as mid-September, but at that point you're starting to get pretty cold, so you'd probably want something warmer to sleep in. We'll go ahead and start with the outside of the pack. We always start with a couple water bottles. In this case, smart water bottles, 23 ounce with the snap caps. Snap caps are nice because you don't lose them as easily when you're drinking. Then also on the outside pockets, I've got a couple of holes for my tarp and a Tenkara style fly fishing rod, just so I can catch a little extra protein. Fishing in the Sierras is usually, it means small fish, but hey, it's fresh fish, it's good. They're beautiful golden trout in many cases, so I usually like to bring a rod with me. In the back, the main stuff that I try to bring in there are the things that I use to layer to warm up or cool down and manage my body temperature throughout the day. And on that note, knit cap. I like the acrylic because it doesn't irritate my skin as much after several days out. Sometimes around the hairline you can start to feel a little funkiness developing, but for some reason the acrylic doesn't do it to me, so that's my preference. This, my bee-free cat from Katahdin, 1 liter squeeze filter. It works great. I prefer this to the other filters because it's got a much larger opening for the mouth of it, and these bags do not pop very easily. I've gotten holes in them even, but when you're squeezing them, you'll just have a little trickle come out, but even if it's just sitting on the ground, it won't leak. So the bags are incredibly durable. The flow rate out of them is pretty good, and I'd say that a filter lasts approximately a season. At that point, it'll start to clog up a little bit, and you might as well get a replacement, but you can buy replacements, so it's okay. Back to the layers. I like to keep my wind jacket on the outside so I can just throw it on real quick or when I get to the top of a tall pass without having to open up my pack. It helps me stay warm because you would rather stay warm than try to get warm later. Also, I've got a light pair of gloves. Light gloves are pretty much exactly what you need. Anything that's too heavy is going to be more than you ever need, but a light glove can just take some of the edge off of that bitter cold in the early morning hours when you're making your oatmeal. A necessary thing in the Sierra for most of the season is a bug net. Most of the time, if you're careful about where you camp, bugs aren't really an issue. Just stay away from lakes, stay away from still water. But you never know. It depends on how much snow we got that year and how the melt goes. Every year and every time of the year, it's a different elevation that's going to have the bad bugs. So it's just good to have it on hand, just in case. I also have, this is a flashlight basically. This is a clip-on like waist lamp. It's made by a company called Ultralight. It's really made for like running because you can clip it on your hips and have a lower angle light. It's nice because I think it's like 4 ounces or something, so it's fairly light and it's nice and bright. Battery life isn't great with it, but I like it. You can also clip it on your neck or your sternum strap. Last thing on the outside is the poop kit. Not to get into too many of the detail things like this, but this is just a little roll of toilet paper, some hand sanitizer, and some soap for deep cleaning. As an option, you can also bring wet wipes. They can also be very nice to kind of freshen up halfway through a long hike. So that's all the stuff on the outside. Getting into the meat of her, on the top and also sometimes in the outer pocket is my bag of assorted everyday quick grabs. We can get into that another time because there's a lot of stuff in there. Then my first aid kit, which is also the sort of thing that we can get into another time. First aid kits are typically optional for shorter hikes. If you can get back within a day, then usually there isn't much you can carry in one of those kits that's going to save you. Also super important in the Sierra, especially early season, are lots of socks. I usually carry 2 pairs of socks, but in a very wet year, when you're hiking straight into the melt, and you know your feet are going to be wet a lot, I've carried as many as 8 pairs of socks, and I did not regret it. When you are hiking through water a lot, if you're also getting a lot of rain or thunderstorms in the evening, as you sometimes do in like late August, early September, you can have a hard time drying out your socks. If the conditions are very wet, consider carrying a lot of extra socks. 2 socks would be fine for most trips. I also have my cook kit. This can vary a lot based on the sort of trip that I'm taking. This is just like a titanium mug and like one of the butane stoves. I'm not going to get into it too much, but this is approximately the sort of size that I would expect for something like that if I was just going to rehydrate or freeze-dry food. Now, in terms of heavy warm layers, this is something that can be optional at times. If you're planning to cook out of your sleeping bag or stay in your sleeping bag most of the time, you can get away without a puffy layer, but honestly, if you like to hang out much in the evening, you're probably going to want a puffy layer. It'll just be more comfortable. Nice puffy layer. Down, very light down is often good. Usually with down, you care more about the weight of the down that's in the jacket than you do about the weight of the jacket overall, as long as you're using light materials. So pay attention to that. That's going to be your indication of how warm that jacket is. For quick trips, this is the bear can that I prefer. It's a Bear Boxer Model 101 contender. The nice thing about it is that it's small and it's light. If you're just going for a weekend, this will carry 2 days of food. 2 days of food is really all you're going to need for a weekend. If you're going for 3 days, you can carry the first day outside of the bear can anyway. You eat all that first day's worth of food, and as long as you've got enough room left for the rest of your smellables in the bear can, you're good to go. I usually opt for a smaller can when I can. Obviously, many people don't choose to do that just because having multiple bear cans on hand doesn't make sense unless you do spend a lot of time in the mountains. Now, these are some wind pants that I made. You can get good wind pants from Montbell, but the problem is if you sit down on rocks much, they're going to get shredded in the back. When I'm wearing shorts for the hiking, I tend to wear my wind pants in the evening, and I had the heavier weight Montbell pants, and they were getting totally shredded. After sewing up the butt a few times, I just went ahead and made these. Now, getting into some more of the sleep stuff. We have a nice fleece hood. I like a fleece hood to sleep in. The reason why I like that is because it allows your breath to get out. The puffy hood would typically keep your face a little warmer, but if it covers your mouth, you're gonna trap all that moisture, and then it's just gonna be gross and clammy in the morning. I don't love that. Some people don't care. For those reasons, I like the fleece. Pillow, totally optional. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind with a pillow, if you choose to get one, try to make sure that it isn't too crinkly, because I find that that's the thing that bothers people the most is when they have crinkly stuff right next to their ear. This one's the Nemo Philo, whatever. It's pretty good. I've been happy with that for a couple seasons. Ground cloth, I've got, they refer to as polycryo sometimes. It's basically like a super heavyweight stretch wrap. I think this is actually the Duck brand winterizing film. That works great. It holds up reasonably well. You'll get like a season and a half out of one sheet. No problem. Sleeping pad, I've got, this is the Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite. I have the short version. I usually throw my pack under my feet and it's fine. One thing that I love about these guys is they patch really easily. This isn't even the proper patch kit. This is tenacious tape. If it's a pretty clean hole, you can put tenacious tape over it. It'll stick nicely and you're good to go. You can basically pump it up right away. It's very comfortable, lots of loft, and very warm. Now, for a tarp, this is the Mld Monk Tarp. I've used a few different tarps. The biggest thing to keep in mind, from my perspective, is that you don't want to have a tarp that's so big that it's hard to set up in wind if it's just going to be you. If you've got a couple people, go ahead and get a bigger tarp because it's nice to have the real estate. I found that when I used a larger tarp on a windy campsite, it was really a pain in the tail. This tarp is, I think, 9 feet by 4 feet or something like that, so it's fairly svelte. It's still more than enough space if you don't have too much stuff, and this is a fairly small kit, so don't be too worried. For stakes, I have the titanium skewers. Everybody sells these. You can get them on Amazon, no brand these days. I like them because if you sink them all the way up to the hilt like that, they'll hold really well in most soils. And if you can't do that in the soil for some reason, it's typically either rocky or really sandy. If it's sandy, you can either get one of these or maybe a stick or something and just bury it in the sand and wrap your tie lines around those. If it's rocky, then there are usually rocks lying around. So you tie around the rocks, you're good to go, no problem. Somewhat optional is a bivy. Because I use a quilt, I like to use a bivy sometimes, especially if they're gonna be bugs, just because it's got the mesh on the top to get to keep it off your face. This one is it Borah gear? Yeah, Borah gear. This is theirs. It's really nice. Small cottage company, make good gear. Highly approved. For a quilt, I have this guy. This is got about a gear, Palisade. It's like 30 degree rated. I found it to be good to about that range. If you get much below 30 degrees, if you get down to 20 degrees, you're gonna need extra layers in it. You will get cold. I think it's a real 30 degrees. that just leaves the pack. The Palante Simple Pack, the older version of it. It's been repaired a little bit. It's generally a good pack, and it's a good company that made good gear and they support it. I believe this is, they say it was 35 when I got it. I think it's actually, the body's more like 28. And then they're just assuming that the rest of it fills out the other 7 liters. Yeah, it's a good pack. It's got a pocket on the bottom, which is nice. I don't think I've seen that from any other brand. Good pack, good gear, and this is what I take on a weekend trip. Last thing, I almost forgot. I had my raincoat out earlier because it's actually currently raining here. But you're going to want a raincoat too, because you do get those afternoon thunderstorms. Don't put too much weight into a raincoat in the Sierra unless you're going in like August, September, sometime later season or early season. Sometime when you're expecting more rain than, say, August. It tends to be pretty dry in there. Lightweight raincoat will do the trick. Okay, now we're really done.